It's time for another blistering report from the front lines of the cultural war for a constitutional America. And now, here's your host, Charles Benninghoff.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi established her own personal Gestapo back in 2008 when she and the Democrats controlled the Congress and the White House. Now they don't control anything. But that group that she started is still operating in Washington, D.C. The group is known as the Office of Congressional Ethics, and it is supposedly an outside watchdog group that assists the House Ethics Committee. The office, in fact, is a witch-hunting group that mainly targets the most conservative members of Congress for alleged ethics investigations, as well as Democrats who try to stray off of Pelosi's reservation. Today, I'll tell you about a conservative plan to rein in this group and how you can help make that happen. The track record of the group is horrendous. Wait until you hear the statistics. Out of 71 investigations conducted since 2008, Pelosi's Office of Congressional Ethics doesn't have a single conviction to its name, not one. Members of Congress, mostly Republicans by about a 2-to-1 margin, have spent millions of dollars in legal fees to defend themselves against false charges from Pelosi's group. Talk about Democrat waste, fraud, and abuse? 71 investigations and a 0% success rate? Sounds just like the Democrats. Only a federal department can chalk up a record like that at taxpayer expense and still have the Democrats cry out to justify its existence. But first, let me explain what has happened so far. The House Republicans voted in conference 119 to 74 to support a resolution to rename Pelosi's Gestapo group and move the group under the oversight of the House Ethics Committee. The resolution was part of a package of House amendments that was voted on and passed by a majority of Republicans. The rules package still has to go to the full House for approval. The GOP voted in favor of the rules change on Monday, January 2nd. The very next day, after complaints from Democrats and the media, the GOP leadership surrendered and stripped the rule change out of the rules package. One negative headline from the New York Times was all it took to make House Speaker Paul Ryan cower under his desk and go against the Republican conference, which voted in favor of this rule change. I think the rule change is incredibly compelling, and it needs to be added back into the rules package or voted on independently, and I'll tell you why. When Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House back in 2008, she spawned the idea for this Office of Congressional Ethics, and the Democrats passed it. The group was not to be confused with the House Committee on Ethics, which is a completely separate operation, run by the House, not by a semi-autonomous group appointed as a oversight committee all on its own. Let me give you some examples of the track record of Pelosi's watchdog group. Since its creation, the Office of Congressional Ethics has falsely accused Texas Representative Blake Farenthold, a Republican, of sexual harassment of a former female employee. The House committee itself threw the case out, and a trial court judge also threw it out in a civil tort case, completely exonerating the congressman. Congressman Peter Roskam, a Republican from Illinois, took a trip to Taiwan in 2011. The congressman submitted his itinerary and payment plans for everything to the House Ethics Committee before he left on the trip. The Ethics Committee said everything was above board. As soon as Congressman Roskam got back from the trip, Pelosi's witch hunt group filed charges claiming that the Taiwanese government paid for the trip. All the charges were eventually dropped, but Roskam had to defend himself from these allegations. Those are two older examples. How about something more recent? Well, in 2016, Pelosi's group filed charges against 3 Republicans after they voiced their support for Donald Trump. Can you believe that? You say you're going to vote for Trump, you get charged. Representative Martin Sulzman, Mark Meadows, and Roger Williams all had ethics charges filed against them based on anonymous public complaints, which is one of the reasons why so many Republicans are in support of this rule change. So, how about Democrats? Only one Democrat had charges filed against him by Pelosi's group in 2016, and that was Congressman Alan Grayson of Florida. Grayson was the most vocal Democrat opponent of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, so it doesn't pay to stray off the Democrat Party reservation, that's for sure. If you oppose anything that Pelosi wants passed, boom, here comes the ethics charges. No wonder the Socialist Party seems so cohesive. Wouldn't you be if you knew you were going to get charged by something like this ethics committee? I think this sounds corrupt. Don't you think it sounds corrupt? I think you might. Time and time again, Pelosi's watchdog group has filed false charges against members of Congress, and the members have had to pay legal fees to clear their names. If the Office of Congressional Ethics had a single conviction for its efforts, then maybe it might be justified to keep it in place. But it has accomplished nothing since 2008. So what is this group doing now? It looks like it mainly harasses anyone opposed to the Democrat agenda, and it is allowed to do so solely on anonymous verbal complaints. That's just part of the problem. The House Committee on Ethics is not allowed to receive complaints from the public. It has to take complaints from whistleblowers inside Congress. This was part of the reason why the American people were told we needed Pelosi's group, which is allowed to take anonymous tips and run with them. All it takes is one anonymous phone call from a Democrat Political Action Committee making an accusation against a Republican, and then the kangaroo court system begins. Then Pelosi's committee publicly announces the investigations, and the Republicans don't even get to know who's accusing them of an ethics violation. Congressman Mark Stutzman from Indiana took a trip to California last August during the congressional recess. During that trip, he and his family on their summer vacation visited the Reagan Library as part of the trip. An anonymous tip was phoned in, and the congressman had been called upon charges because he might have spent campaign funds to visit the Reagan Library. One phone call was placed, possibly from a George Soros-funded political action committee, and now the congressman has to spend tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees to defend himself against an anonymous accusation. I'm all in favor of government transparency and outside watchdog groups, but this is ridiculous. We have to keep an eye on Congress because many of them are being bribed by special interests and globalist corporations. But Pelosi's group is not independent. It primarily targets conservatives, and it doesn't have a single ethics conviction after 8 years of work. And just look at the case about the member of Congress who was opposing Trans-Pacific Partnership. He got nailed. Why? Because he opposed Pelosi. All it would take, in my humble opinion, is a simple rule change to allow House ethics committees to take public tips. That would sort this mess out completely. The ethics committee is bipartisan and evenly split between Republicans and Democrats. I say, let that committee take the tips from the public so it can assess them privately before announcing to the world that a representative is under investigation. Unlike Pelosi's group, the House Ethics Committee has a track record of actually convicting representatives of impropriety. Pelosi's group has done nothing to show for its efforts. So, here's how you can help. Go to our action page today and send personalized letters to the House of Representatives, starting with the House Freedom Caucus. Tell them to support reining in Nancy Pelosi's Gestapo group that has falsely accused dozens of Republicans of ethics violations, as well as members of her own party simply for opposing her. 71 investigations and 0 convictions is a terrible track record, and now it's time to make a change. Stay tuned, because Bob Mallory will have instructions on the next screen describing how you can get to our action page and take action against this perfidy in operation. This is Charles Benninghoff signing off and wishing you freedom, fulfillment, and God's many blessings.
Tell Congress to pass this vitally important ethics reform proposal today. If you're on our action page on our website, just use the form next to the video screen to select a program. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, click the icon appearing now to find a link to our action page, or check the video's description to find the link. Speak out today.